Hey, welcome back, YouTube. Just some more stuff going on with Living the Dream Racing. Um, Last video I'd mentioned that I was going to be getting some shoulder surgery and got her done. This shoulder's fixed now, and um, it's going to be in the healing process for a little while. But again, we're still dead in the middle of the winter right here, so it's going to be a while before anything really happens. But the good news is I've started getting parts and stuff in for the car for this next season. I'd mentioned in my previous video that I wanted to start doing some tech videos, and I wanted to do things a little bit differently. There's millions of videos out there of people saying, this is how I take this apart and this is how I put it together. And that's great. I mean, it's some how-to stuff for people that don't know how, and it's a good reference for people that don't know how, and or they want to see something possibly different than the way they're doing it. Nothing wrong with that at all. The big issue is the one thing I don't see is a lot of videos that show how things work or why they work. And that's the stuff that I want to try to cover with my tech videos. One of the things that I mentioned that I would be covering is upgrades to my car and why I'm doing that. And one of the newest ones that just came in, got it this last week, is my data recorder. This is the module right here. This one is by RPM Performance, and they come very highly recommended by Chance Racing Converters. So I wanted to talk to you just a little bit about data recording systems and what they're for, why we use them. So first off, I'd mentioned that I went with RPM because of the cost. They built a system for me that was half the price of the others. Actually, is less than half the price of the others, but it acquires the same data. When you have something that can do the same job with the same level of quality and as good or better customer service, I don't see a reason to spend the extra money for a name. There are some things that I will buy only because of the name, because of the reputation. But there's other things that if I know that there's something else out there that's less expensive, that does as good or a better job, has as good or better customer service, and is substantially lower in cost, I'm going to go that route. And RPM is one of those things. Got on the phone with these guys and told them what I wanted as far as the system is concerned, what I wanted to track, what I wanted to record. They whipped up the system, threw it in a box, dropped it in the mail, and sent it off to me. Now, the one thing is the cables that go with this system are cut to fit, so I have to still mock up my controller right here, and still hurts a little bit. I don't have a whole lot of movement right now, but I do have to mock up the controller and route the wires to where they're going to be going. And then what I'm going to do is I cut the wires off right there, and I send those back to RPM, and they will terminate them and send them back to me at no charge. So I'll have basically custom length wires for my system without me having to worry about doing the termination on the ends of them. So guaranteed that they'll fit. So it's pretty cool. So anyway, we're going to talk a little bit about data recorders and what we use them for. There are countless racers out there right now that not only do well, but win without data recorders. So are they absolutely needed? No, they're not. However, anytime you can gather more data for your racing program, anytime you can gather more information, you can fine-tune it that much better. One thing that comes into mind is the faster your car goes, the more power it's making, the more things that you need to watch and pay attention to. And when you are running a car that runs well into the 6-second zone, well over 200 miles per hour, you can do it without a data recorder. Like I said, there are people doing it right now, easily and repeatedly. But sometimes they lack consistency. Not always. It's not a rule of thumb. I'm not trying to put anything out there like that. But sometimes they lack consistency. Or sometimes they'll run into a situation or a condition where they're not sure which direction to go and they have to take a wild guess at it. And sometimes from experience it works and sometimes it doesn't. Some teams may use predictive software or tuning software It tells them under these conditions, make this change and so on. Other guys, they just keep really, really good notes and have raced a lot and said, okay, let's go back through our notes, and when our car did this under these conditions, this is what we did, so we're close to that, so this is what we need to do this time around. And it works for a lot of people. There's some national champions out there, there's some divisional champions out there, there's some local champions out there that win every weekend using good old-fashioned stuff like that. So there's nothing wrong with it. But you can get better. You can improve your program by using data collection. And the way it works is simply you put a module on your car that is capable of watching different things. And these different things commonly include engine RPM, drive shaft RPM, acceleration forces, sometimes engine vitals like fuel pressure, oil pressure, coolant temperature, other things like that. There's, depending upon the complexity of the car, how fast it is, what it's using to go that fast and stuff, there can be a whole plethora of things that are added to the car for it to run. But you get the idea. Basically, so a data recorder watches all of this stuff and it records it during the run. At the end of the run, whoever's tuning the car or crew chiefing the car or doing whatever, they can pull that data file out, they can plug it up on a computer, and they can look at it, and they can see what the car is doing as it goes down track. Now, the advantage to having data like that is, let's say there's a portion of the track that you're having trouble getting down for some reason. Every time you hit it, you spin the tires, or something happens at that point of the track, and you're not sure what it's doing. Well, you can try to tune around it and guess at it, or you can take a look at some data and say, okay, it looks like I've got a little bit of wheel spin right there. Maybe I should back the timing off, take a little bit of power away right there, and then ramp it back in after I get past that spot. Sometimes taking power away from a car to get down the track will actually make it faster than trying to put more power to the track, especially when it can't handle it. So there's a lot of different tricks that you can do, and that's where data collection comes in, is because it allows you to see what the car is doing as it goes down track, and it allows you to make small, minute changes like that that only affect a portion of the run instead of the entire run. For example, I run alcohol for a fuel, and I run mechanical fuel injection for an induction system. Okay, well, I can make a pill change and affect the entire fuel curve for the system, all the way from throttle to wide open throttle. That main pill change will affect the fuel curve all the way through. But let's say my fuel curve is good until I'm in high gear and at the top end of my RPM range, and I'm running just a little bit fat up there. Well, I can throw in a high speed, and I can bleed off that extra fuel up top to help gain some of that performance back. Well, how do you tune it? Well, I can go off the plugs, but if most of my fuel curve is good, the plugs may not tell me a whole lot in that case. They may say your fuel curve is good. But I could look at the data and say, okay, well, I've got O2 sensors, or I've got EGT sensors, or both. At the top end of my curve, it's going a little bit fat. I put in the high speed, and now it's going a little bit lean, so I can tune the high speed in so the fuel curve at that point is just right. So for that narrow RPM range, I can use that data to determine how to adjust that high speed to get my fuel curve just right at that point in the track. Let's say I'm having trouble with wheel spin. I'm not getting the car stuck like it needs to be. Well, I can look at the data. I can look at the drive shaft RPM and engine RPM and say, okay, well, maybe I'm putting too much power down right here and I need to pull a little bit of power away from it. Maybe my converter's not correct. I can look and see how my engine RPM curve or my engine acceleration curve compares to my drive shaft acceleration curve. And there's a target that most converter builders try to get on your particular combo to make it as efficient as possible, because what they want to do is give you enough slip in that converter to maximize your acceleration and torque multiplication in that car with as minimal slip as possible. The more efficient you can make a converter, the better, but you still need that converter to slip to accelerate the car. And if your converter's not slipping just right, well, you can look at the data and you can figure that out. Okay, I'm dropping too many RPM on a shift, or the converter's not coupling quick enough, or it's locking up too soon, it's pulling the engine down too quick. All that stuff can be determined using data. G-forces. Well, the car just didn't feel like it was running like it should be that last pass. Well, I can look at the G-forces. Let's say on a normal run, I pull 3.5 Gs, and I look at this data, and it pulls 2.5. Okay, well, something's definitely wrong. Okay, it's not pulling as hard as it should. Why? Well, now I can go back and I can look at the data and say, well, okay, this parameter was doing okay, but these two here, they're not. Something's going on with that. And what it ends up being is it just ends up being another tool in your toolbox that you can use to improve on the performance of your vehicle on the track so it can be the best it can be. Okay? So it's not an end all be all. You have to know how to interpret the data, you have to know what you're looking at, and you have to be collecting the right data. Not every car is the same. Not every car is going to have the same data collection. The basic stuff most cars are going to have. That's going to be your engine RPM, your drive shaft RPM, and an accelerometer. Depending upon the setup, somebody may want to watch fuel pressure. They may want to watch oil pressure. They may want to watch coolant temp. If you have a power adder, they may want to watch boost level, nitrous pressure, manifold pressure, fuel pressure rise under boost, stuff like that. There's a lot of stuff that comes into play with it. But the thing is without that data, a lot of times you're just going to be guessing at stuff. And it's going to be really hard for you to figure it out unless you know exactly what to look for. So that's what's going on. That's why I'm putting a data recorder on my car, is I want to get my converter right and I want to get my tune-up right, because I plan on going as fast as I can. And it's just another tool to help me figure out and fine-tune the things that need to be fine-tuned and figured out. I kind of know what needs to happen with my car right now, but everything is just a guess without the data, especially the torque converter. I know what the converter is doing right now. I know what the condition with my torque converter is right now, but without seeing how it couples, how quickly it couples, how efficient it is, and everything else, we can't really determine where it needs to be. But once I have a data trace, once I have, that acceleration G-forces data, I have the engine RPM data, I have the drive shaft RPM data. Once I have that stuff, then we can take a look at that and be like, oh yeah, this is the direction we need to go with your converter. And we can nail that down a lot better than the guesswork that we tried before, which didn't work real well. When you take a shot in the dark at something, sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you didn't, and we didn't get lucky. Again, I can't blame converter guy for that, because it was a shot in the dark, quite literally. We underestimated the power my engine was going to be making, and overestimated and underestimated what I would be able to stall that converter at. And needless to say, yeah, we missed. But with the data recorder, that's not going to be a guess anymore. We'll know exactly where we need to be and what we need to do to get where we need to be. So anyway, just a quick one. Talk a little bit about data recording. The other stuff that I control on my car, or not control, but that I monitor on my cars, I monitor crankcase pressure. In other words, manifold vacuum, or not manifold vacuum, but crankcase vacuum. That's a very, very useful thing to monitor, especially if you're running nitrous or a power adder application, because when you have a vacuum pump on your car and you're pulling a crankcase into a positive vacuum, that vacuum should get to a point, and then it should basically flatline or level off, depending upon where the regulator's set at, and it should be a nice smooth trace all the way through. If you're seeing a really choppy trace at different points in the graph or all the way across, what that tells you is you do not have a happy engine. You're seeing detonation because it's unseating the rings. The rings aren't sealing, and that's reflecting what's going on in the crankcase, and that in turn turns around and shows up on the sensor. So that's one of the big things about doing all of this, is not only so I can run the best tune-up that I can get in it, I can push that tune-up as hard as I can without hurting stuff, which is very important because it gets expensive when you hurt stuff. I've already done that. I have to replace the camshaft and the lifters because I hurt a lifter and it wiped out the camshaft. So it's $2,500 right there, gone. So needless to say, that was a little bit of a shock. But hey, that's racing. It happens. If you're not willing to just accept that and fix it and move on, then probably shouldn't be racing. But anyway, but yeah, with that I can watch different stuff and watch my nitrous bottle pressure, because I run nitrous. I can make sure that my nitrous bottle pressure is the same run to run to run, and the pressure drop on the bottle during the run is the same run to run to run, because that's gonna increase my consistency from run to run. That's going to make sure that the car repeats like it should, and that I don't have any tuning issues. Because, you know, if I see something that's really weird, like bottle pressure drops off all of a sudden, or it rises up too much all of a sudden, or the pressure drop isn't what it's expected to be, or something like that, that affects how the tune-up behaves. And that can affect performance. It can affect it negatively. It can affect it positively. I could go faster than I intend to, or I might go slower than I intend to, or I can hurt parts. And the more data we got, the better off it is. So anyway, like I said, just wanted to do a real quick video here on data collection and a data recorder. Since I got mine now, I'll be able to start mocking things up here. Probably do it, you know, later on this week and into this weekend, as I start to get a little bit more use of my arm and my shoulder, because that's something that I can do. That's not really going to put any stress on my shoulder while it's healing up. But I can get all those measurements taken and get that stuff ready to get thrown into the car, and you know, start getting ready for this next season. So anyway, if you have any questions, comments, input, anything like that, please share down in the comments section. If I think about it, I'll remember to put links for RPM Performance and in the box below. And please like, comment, share, and subscribe. And let's try to grow this. I know I suck right now at this because I'm still just getting started with it, but I promise things will get better. So anyway, thanks for watching, and I look forward to making the next one.